Dear trading friends, right now everything seems to be working out exactly as I imagined, just as I showed in the last videos. Today we're going to go through all of my positions. That means Bitcoin, Ethereum, but also various altcoins. What about the trade outs? Because right now all of them are between 10 and almost 60% in profit. I'll quickly show that again, and pretty much every short position was triggered perfectly. But for me this is currently just a plan so that I can prepare for the next long position. That means I want to make the most of the market. For example, I'm short on Bitcoin up here right now, and I'm looking for the next long entry here or the next long entry here so I can continue moving upward afterwards. With this bullish breakout from the resistance we had here, I'll draw it for you again. It was exactly here. We had a candle close above it here. That means we can now assume a bullish reversal here. On the 4-hour chart, this looks very good. Why is that the case? Because after this low, we didn't make a new lower low, but instead a higher low. And now this bullish price action might continue in the same way. So this is what my plan looks like now. Accordingly, I already have a few other altcoins where this happened much earlier. But I'll also show you where my next long entries are now. Let's stick with Bitcoin for now. Now let's go through Bitcoin in detail. As you can see, I'll present this again next time as well. I've changed a few things on my Fibonacci. Don't worry, the entries remain exactly the same. Everything is just as it was before. I've just made it a bit clearer here, showing only the entries and my stop loss below. So there aren't even more lines and it's easier to see. Just so you know what I've done here. As a small example, if I go down here now and switch back to my scalping mode, then we have my green and red lines above and below again. But I think it just looks better and clearer for you visually if I use my new version so that we really only have the entry lines. And I show my take profit anyway, in the case where it actually happens. If you're new to my channel, I'd of course appreciate it if you subscribed. Let's hit the next 1000 milestone together. And where can you find the guide with my exact trading strategy? This is the simplest trading strategy and you're still not using it. I would recommend you watch this video. In it, I explain everything in detail, or you can also check out the Learn Trading Step by Step to Become a Pro Trader playlist, where I go through all the individual aspects again, like how I combine Fibonacci with the liquidation heat map at the same time. Now let's continue with Bitcoin. At this point in time, why do I see the possibility that we could still reach 88 to 87,000 US dollars? After we made a new high here, for me, the only thing I expect now is the next move. That we go down to exactly where the 0.5 entry was, which worked out so brilliantly. Once again, Fibonacci was hit very well, that it now drops down to entry 1 at the 0.5 Fibonacci at 88,890, or even to entry 2 at 87,694, and then gets a recovery and continues to rise in order to trigger the next level up here. What speaks in favor of this? But today, we'll only stick to Bitcoin when looking at the liquidation heat map. We'll go through everything else just on the chart. We can see here, and you can really only see this well on Model 3 at CoinClass. I also show this in the playlist. If we look at the 3-day basis here, we have a massive cluster at around 88,317 US dollars. Let's remember the price. 88,300 and down to about 86,700, even a bit below, just under 86,000. We still have quite a bit of liquidity lying here. You can see that very clearly here. But just because this cluster is here, you shouldn't speculate that Bitcoin will find support at this level. Because if we go further down, there are still several million here that can be picked up. And right now, I'm only talking about Binance. If I go to the symbol here and look at the 3-day chart and zoom in, you'll see exactly what I mean. Of course, there are a lot more millions lying here, and I estimate that there's still a chance for Bitcoin to drop down to 86,700 US dollars. Where is that? 86,700 would still be before my stop loss, which is set here at 86,459. But what's also very, very interesting is that, and we shouldn't forget this long position has created a fair value gap. You can also see this very clearly with the smart money concept indicator from Big Beluga. I'm really going to make a detailed video about this so you can visualize it in case you can't already read it in the candlesticks. But right here, I'll just move this briefly. We see a fair value gap exactly in the middle, and the Fibonacci 0.5 entry we have lies perfectly over this fair value gap. And that's why for me there's a possibility that we'll target exactly this area. That would be the midpoint. And if that doesn't hold, the 0.618 entry would still be interesting for me. And that would align very well with the fair value gap here. And so that all the volume contained in this candle, where the shown liquidity is now also located, can serve as a possible long entry here. For me, it looks like this. For those who don't know, I enter here at the 0.5, set a stop loss just before the 0.618, and then target the top here, where my short entry was. And at the same time, I have a second entry down at the 0.618. But in this case, you can see that I've now set my stop loss here using the new Fibonacci, the 0.73984. If you want to replicate this, you can take a look here. These are my settings with the 0.5, 0.786, and 0.73984. But if we take another look at my scalp setup, this is actually how it looks and how I have it configured to draw my Fibonacci levels. You can take a screenshot so you'll have it for yourself in the future. So right now I have the optimal situation of being in a short position at this point in time. And if we really do go further down, I have this short position which is still open and making profits. And here I would take 2 small stop losses. But if we actually do, as mentioned, get this reversal here, then I have the opportunity, as soon as we get an entry and a recovery here, or also here an entry and a recovery, to take partial profits. And I see that the price is reacting here, and I already set my stop loss to break even, so I'm protected in case we really continue to rise. That way I won't take any more losses. I have partial profits out there, and I have my new long positions in place, so I've taken perfect advantage of the market in both directions. Let's see if everything works out the way I expect, but we'll see that in the future. Moving on to Ethereum. For Ethereum, I already placed a long trade way down below. You can see that here. That's the long-term 0.618 Fibonacci. I've shown that in the past. There you can also see the entire performance of Ethereum. I did get stopped out with small stop losses a few times, but the take profits were really, really good. Even here during the record crash downwards. Here again, I hit a few take profits, but the reward was always much higher than my stop loss, so I had a very, very good entry here as well. And by the way, for those who might want to see it, this is also how things currently look for Bitcoin. Here too, I had an incredibly good trading performance, and down here I recently closed my long position at a loss, but there are reasons for that, because I want to get in at lower entries, since the last one was at 98,000. But let's stay with Ethereum for now. This is the current long trade. At the same time, I also have another short trade open on Ethereum, which looks like this. The stop loss for this one also wasn't hit up here, but here too I said, because we never reached the Fibonacci level on the way down, I decided this would be my next short entry, so I can say, okay, we're moving into bullish price action here and could then see higher prices again. That's how it currently looks as well. I have the Ethereum short entry open, and I'm combining everything with grid trading bots. At the moment, I'm just testing with very small amounts and very high leverage, but there's something coming in the future that I'm preparing for you with this new test phase. But there's nothing different with Ethereum here. There are also these short positions. 2 short positions are open. The first one is right here with a stop loss in this area, just before the other entry. I'm holding the position at least until down here unless we get a reaction. I'll show you that in a moment as well. And the second short position I placed up here at the 0.618 at $3,257 US. And here as well, if we rise again, I would still have the opportunity to catch a short reversal. Here we see the same thing. Look, here too we have this fair value gap, which I believe can be filled. And if I turn on the big beluga here, so you can see it visualized again, this is exactly what I mean. But we also have to be careful with the order block down here. That could be a possibility for us to pick that up. But for now, it also looks to me like this. I see 2 possibilities with Ethereum, because if the first one doesn't work out, I would say my new long positions would be in this area, and you can see here exactly the same thing is happening again. At the fair value gap, the 0.618 right in the middle, I'll turn it on again. You can see that's a possible entry for me. But I'll probably also use the 0.5 as an entry, because we have this support zone here. We can see that here now at the 0.5. If I put it in now, it's exactly at this volume block. I don't know, for me it's definitely more interesting if the 0.618 gets triggered as a long. If that doesn't happen, I'll still take the 0.5. Option 1. Option 2, because here, and I'll show you this again, we haven't made a new high since the previous recovery, and only now with a possible trend reversal and the new high, we might say that we collect liquidity from below once more and then move upwards, as I showed before. So I'm also preparing for the following, that I take the last low and then go up again from here. And then you can see that actually if I take this low here, I have 2 Fibonacci levels with a very strong confluence at 0.618 and 0.5. That would be right here at this fair value gap again. That would be around 2,930 to 2,920 US dollars. And accordingly, I see this as a very valid zone here in case the 0.5 doesn't hold, where I would say we have a reversal exactly in the area where these 2 Fibonacci levels coincide, and then the recovery moves upward. That's how it looks at the current moment. But if we move on now to the next coin, that one was also very, very interesting. I took great advantage of it. Although I got stopped out down here on a long entry, I was able to catch the second entry at the bottom. Take profit was hit perfectly. The previous short position was closed with partial profits. Both are in the reversal zone. Then I moved the stop loss to break even, and now I'm in the next trade. Because now the 0.618 entry was triggered, and I was already thinking, hey, the stop loss was triggered, but it actually worked out. That's why at this moment I still have this position open, just barely in profit. But here as well, I see possible scenarios that now look as follows. My next long entries could come in here at 0.5 or 0.618. That's nothing more than simply drawing my Fibonacci from this low to this high. This means possible reversal zones here or also here, and then it continues to rise afterwards. You can also see how nicely this bullish price action is continuing here so that we can keep moving up afterwards. If that's not the case, I have a short position that will keep running down, but the optimal scenario would be for us to trigger exactly this long entry. Here again we have this fair value gap, just as shown with the previous coins, right at the 0.618 level. What I find incredibly interesting is that we have the midpoint of the fair value gap here. Using that as a possible entry and then continuing to rise, should we of course move further down. Now let's move on to XLM, because unfortunately with XLM, well, one thing was good, the short entry was good. I secured partial profits there and closed the stop loss at break even. Unfortunately, I got stopped out twice down here, yes, once here and once here. After that, there was an upswing and we had another rejection at the 0.5 Fibonacci. At this point though, XLM is a bit too risky for me, so I might already take the 0.5. I'm not sure yet, because the next recovery could be where I say we might go down to get a reversal here, or even down to the 0.618 to get a reversal. But down here, as I've marked, this order block is also super interesting. You have to be a bit careful with XLM. What's good here is that we haven't made a lower low, but with these recoveries, we also haven't made a new higher high, which is why I'm a bit cautious with entries here, and I'll probably only try to target the 0.618. Yes, for a possible long entry, even though we have the fair value gap here. And I'm still undecided whether I'll use the fair value gap as an entry and maybe take the second one here, but skip the 0.5 entirely, making these my next two possible trades. What's really interesting next is SUI, because SUI has just performed so well, doing exactly what it was supposed to do right on point. Here, I'll quickly turn off the big beluga again. As you can see, this is my current short entry. It's currently deep in profit and waiting for its next long entries. That would be here at the 0.5 Fibonacci at $1.5495. That would also be the upper part of this volume block. If that doesn't happen, my next long entry is at 0.618, and here again we can see the fair value gap visualized just below the 0.618. And here again we have this volume block above and below as a possible entry scenario, where we can say, okay, this could be our support zone if we dip into the volume block and use this as possible support at the 0.618, maybe even pick up the fair value gap and then make this reversal here. Because what SUI did well here is that it created a double bottom, which was then confirmed by a new really nice high as a breakout. And here I now see the possibility that we might dip in again and then see higher prices. But here too, I am still prepared for a short entry at the 0.618 level in the future. That doesn't mean I'm short for the long term, but rather that I want to hedge myself again. I'm saying maybe it goes in like this. Then we get a bit of a pullback somewhere due to price action and afterwards continue to move higher. That's how things currently look with SUI. This position is also nicely in profit. Then we also have Chainlink. Here as well, wonderful. Now we've reached that too. Here as well, we're taking the big beluga out again, since we had this nice breakout after also having a double bottom down here. So similar to what you saw earlier with SUI, right? Where the breakout didn't quite make it past the double bottom. Afterwards, a beautiful breakout that broke through every lower high to the upside here. Here I also see the possibility of 0.50, 0.618, and then a potential rise to continue the price action. Again, we have a fair value gap down here, a bit further down in this case, and I'm curious whether the 0.618 entry will hold or if we'll even drop that far. We'll see that in the future. Solana also did wonderfully, it triggered that very well again. Take a look at this. Solana could have... I haven't opened the 0.5 entry yet. I'll show you why in a moment, because I see more potential here, also at the 0.618. Let's see if I still go for that. If I continue to analyze the chart, but the short entry fits in very nicely. With Solana, I can now set my stop loss to break even, because I've reached my risk reward ratio of 1:2. That means this position is already secured for me. Nothing can go wrong anymore. And if we continue to fall, this position will keep making profits. For me, the fair value gap we have here at 0.618 or a bit above is also a very valid possible entry. That would be the first scenario. The second thing I see here as a possible second entry scenario is if I say this one doesn't work out and we keep dropping further, because, and this is something to keep in mind with a trend reversal which we've just had here, since we tried to make a new high but didn't succeed and the high stayed the same. A strong correction downwards, and only now did we make a new high. Accordingly, I don't just want to use this low here at the 0.618 as an entry, but what's much more interesting to me, since we've only just had a new breakout, is to take the last low, pull it up here again, and look for my next entries here instead. And that looks more valid to me if I remove the previous smaller one here. And I say I use this 0.5 and this 0.618 entry as possible long positions because this high here failed to make a confirmed breakout and only this high did. And accordingly, I rather use the last truly lower low we had there to find a possible entry here. At this point, it actually doesn't look too bad to use the $133 and $130 for that. As I mentioned in the last video, I already took partial profits on XRP. I moved the stop loss to break even. That means this trade is basically finished. Otherwise, with Litecoin, we can see there's still a bit of room to the upside before the next entries. I'll keep you updated on that. I also don't see a bullish reversal for HBAR yet. Everything still looks bearish. Even though we haven't made a lower low in this case, I still don't see a valid entry for myself there. I see it the same way with Dogecoin and Grow. With Grow, I would probably even skip the 0.5 because if we get a breakout here, I could imagine that it would be valid with a bit more volume. And I would see it like this. If we break through this level here to the upside and recover there so that we get a stronger breakout, move into the next volume zone, have another retest at the 0.618 on this strong breakout zone, only then would I open a new long position here and dare to go higher. Accordingly, for me, the 0.618 is actually the only interesting short entry available at the current time. And to wrap up, just very briefly back to Bitcoin, I forgot to mention something since it was also the case with Solana. There is one possibility that I currently still see here. This current breakout we had did not manage to break through these last lower highs to the upside. Then we had a stronger correction and only now do we actually have a possible trend reversal with a new higher high being made. And that's why I also see the possibility that we might trigger the 0.786 and then continue upwards or even drop a bit. What would support that scenario? I'll remove this again now so that we can maybe see it once more with this order block here. Because anyone who paid attention with Solana will understand this now as well. Since we didn't break through the high at the beginning as confirmation, we've only now made a new higher high and accordingly I'm not using this low here, but actually this low here as the next possible entry. And accordingly, this 0.618 entry at around 85,843 is once again a potentially valid zone where I say I could enter there. That would also be the case here. If you overlay it here, you can see that the 0.618 and the 0.786 would be a possible valid match where I would place another entry if I really take another stop loss here. Alright, that's it for the video. You're up to date with all the trades. It worked out really well. If you've seen my old videos, or rather the previous videos, unfortunately got very few views. I have to be honest, I don't even know why. I'm trying to provide you with the best possible content. You can see how well the analyses work. That's why I'd really appreciate it if you could subscribe, especially like and comment on the videos for a bit more of an algorithm boost, and see you next time. Bye bye.